Welcome back to Angela's YouTube channel, Mental Health, Raw, Real, and Uncut. It's been a while since we last talked, so I want to catch you up to date. Back in April of 2020 of this year, I had a nervous breakdown and I became very depressed, isolated, and I let the enemy try to make me feel like there was no reason for me to continue living. I wrote a letter to my children in private, letting them know how much I loved them as their mother, how much I believed in them and their dreams and aspirations, and encouraged them to never give up and to always continue to dream big and to make sure they accomplished everything that they put their mind and hearts to. I wrote a letter to my husband, and initially my intent was to just take my life. This is not the first time that I've had a nervous breakdown, and this has happened mentally and emotionally and physically. This time, I tried to lock myself in the room and trap myself under my bed, and I tried to suffocate myself to death. I also tried to take a bunch of my antidepressants and over OD on them at the same time. During this time or this season of my life, it was very, very difficult because I have been dealing with a lot of grief. On April of last year, 2019, I lost my grandmother, whom at the time I did not realize just how close I was to her. I know I grew up saying that, we were inseparable. I loved her and she was my best friend. And even though, we had our ups and downs, I genuinely, wholeheartedly, and unconditionally loved that woman, Alberta. So the thought of losing her and the way that I lost her last year became unbearable. It was a very difficult time in my life. She had been battling cancer for quite some time. She had, defied odds, been through different procedures, operations, things of that nature. Had been battling for like 5 years when we first found out in 2000, I think in 14, that she had inoperable terminal multiple myeloma cancer. But for her to pass away last year the way that she did from a blood clot in her intestines really shook me because the doctors, no one was able to prove exactly how it came about. She had just had a bunch of tests done the month or so previous. All her test results, blood work, and everything came back fine, negative. They didn't find anything, no issues. And then all of a sudden, she woke up out of her sleep one night in a bunch of pain, according to my aunts, making moaning noises and different things like that. And they noticed that she was trying to gasp for air. And then they took her to the hospital. And then out the blue, after being in hospital and running a bunch of tests and doing all this stuff, putting her on a CPAP machine and all this stuff, they found out that she had a bad infection, a severe infection, blood clot in her intestines. And it was affecting her health, her heart, her breathing, her arrhythmia, affecting a lot of stuff. Eventually they were able to control that and get the rest of her organs and body to be stable. But after getting all of that control, they were not able to stabilize the blood infection or to stop it. At that time, I guess it got so bad there was nothing they could do. They ran a bunch of tests, saw some other issues, but they were like, with her being 87 years old at that point, there was no point. There was nothing else they could have done to prevent anything or continue to operate that would stop what was already happening in her body. I called her every day. I talked to her as much as I could. I called her at the hospital. I called her so much and checked on her so much during that time of last year when she was in the hospital that the nurses in Arizona knew my whole name. They wrote my information on the board. And they even, stated that you must truly love your grandmother. And it says a lot for you to have a relative to call and check on your grandparent in this manner. And they commended me for that. After my grandmother was in the hospital for almost a week or a week and a half, she got tired. She got tired of being poked and prodded on and messed with and just different things checked on. They gave her some morphine, put PICC lines in her, gave her all type of stuff, but nothing could stop the infection. So the doctors came to her and my aunts and basically gave them the final results of whether she could stay in the hospital and finish out the course of her life in the hospital, or she could go home and finish it there. So she decided to go home. They decided to put her on hospice immediately, and they didn't know how long she would make it on hospice. She got home in the first couple weeks. Everything was looking up. Everything was doing pretty good. Nobody suspected anything. We were like, okay, things are turning around. She's a fighter. She's not going to give up. She Alberta James, She tough as nails. The next thing you know, things took a toll for the worse. She began to stop eating. She started sleeping a lot. She became severely stricken by pain to the point where she had to have her morphine at home increased by the hospice care nurses on site that would come in and check on her in her home every couple hours. And her pain became so unbearable that she had to just be given morphine just to make it through. I was very blessed to be able to talk to her like a few days or a week or so right before she passed away. I was able to FaceTime her and tell her how much I loved her. It had grieved me and hurt me so bad to see her in such pain and agony, and just to see her just laying in that hospital bed in her home, just helpless, hopeless. I could tell she had given up or was giving up, but I still had hope. I still had faith that my grandma Alberta was going to pull through. But Tuesday, April 16th, God saw different. And he called her home. After I talked to her that week prior, they said that my aunt said that was the last time she had spoke to anybody, the last time she had ate, everything. She just slept for that last week of her life until God called her home in her sleep. God had prepared me years and years ago. He really did. He prepared me for her departure. But I still was not ready for her departure. I guess I wasn't ready because I was continuing to hang on to the thoughts of her, the memories of her, her physical being, her aspect, who she was. Even though, life had happened, she had become a little bit more angry and depressed towards the end of her life because she felt like she didn't get to accomplish everything she set out to do. I still loved her. I still love her. Um, and at her celebration of life service, I learned more about how awesome of a woman she really was. But my heart hurt for her because even though she was an awesome woman, she never saw that in herself. She didn't have mentors and different people along the way like I've been blessed with to have, to encourage her, to speak life into her, to tell her not to give up, to tell her how beautiful she was, how to keep going. So she gave into the negativity of this world. She just became very hard. Her heart became hard, and she became very just aggressive and tough and strong and emotionless and even mean at times towards people. And it wasn't that I don't think she meant to do it. It was just her way of grinding and continuing on with life in spite of what was being dealt to her. But I'll always be able to cherish that whenever I or my husband and I went down to go see her. She would, be hard on the phone, talking tough, saying all this stuff. But as soon as we would get to her house and we would walk in, she would light up like a Christmas tree. She'd be smiling from ear to ear to see us. She would cook us anything that we requested. She would still fuss at us because that was Alberta. That's just what she did. But she genuinely was happy to see us because she knew that we were going to let her be free, that we were going to let her live her life, no matter what that meant or how that looked. We would take her shopping. We would get her out so she could feel the sunshine on her back. We would just let her be her. We wouldn't keep her confined to the house. We would take her to roadside flea markets and the mall and, her books, Barnes and Noble bookstore where she would sit with my husband and read for hours. My heart just really grieved her loss because even though she was 87 and she was suffering with this illness, I still felt she had so much more to gain, so much more to live for. She could have been so much happier and at peace in her life if she would have just had the chance to get away from the negativity in her life and to be shown a different way of life and to change her mindset. I really do believe that. But no one knows the day, the hour, the time that God is going to call you home. And it was her time. I only can hope and wish and pray that she's very happy now in heaven. I only can hope and wish and pray that, I wish she could have lived that marvelous life she always dreamed of. Had the man of God that treated her like a queen, as she was. And that she had everything. That she didn't have to deal with social injustice and racism and bigotry and discrimination and aggressiveness and men that were womanizers and abuse and drugs and alcohol. And if I could turn back the hands of time for Alberta, I will paint her a different future, a different life with minimal pain and minimal adversity. I will paint her a new picture of how her life should have turned out, would have turned out, and could have turned out. But God knew best. I hope that as she's resting in the arms of Jesus, that she will always know how much her granddaughter, me, Angela, truly, unconditionally loved her. I loved her in spite of her flaws, her imperfection, her negativity, her anger, her pain, her abuse. I love that woman. I will always love her. And I will always cherish the memories that we shared. I will never give up on her legacy. I will never stop talking about her. I will never stop thinking about her. And I will never stop missing her. My grandmother Alberta will always have a place in my heart. Always. Grandma, I hope you're listening. I love you. I always loved you. And I will always love you. And I pray with all my heart that you're happy now, that you're at peace with God, within yourself. And I pray that you're in heaven living the life you should have always had and deserved. There's not a day that goes by that I don't think about you and that I don't miss you. I miss your voice. I miss your quick wittiness, your sarcasm. I miss your laugh. I miss your jokes, your antics. I miss your political talk. I miss sending you care packages with your favorite okie doke cheese popcorn and your Time magazines with Obama on them. I miss you. And I will always carry you in my heart. No one will ever take your place. And I will never try to replace what we shared with anybody here on earth. Only God can do that. And I fully release you to be free, to be who you've always wanted to be in God. May your spirit and legacy continue to live in you. I love you, Alberta, Elizabeth, Barry, Luster, James.